There is a version of today that most horoscopes will completely miss. It looks like an ordinary Thursday errands, a few conversations, maybe a chore you keep putting off. But underneath that surface, two very different timelines are colliding for you, Sagittarius. One stretches back years and will not fully resolve until early 2028. The other lasts about 8 hours and could be gone by dinner. Most people will only notice the second one. You are about to understand both and why the small one might be quietly teaching you how to survive the big one. The bigger picture. Let us start with the slow-burning story, because it is the one running underneath everything else this year. Saturn has been moving through Aries, and for you, that placement lands in the part of your chart governing intimacy, romance, fertility, and the people closest to your heart partners, children, the next generation coming up behind you. In Western tropical astrology, this is read as a structural test. Saturn does not punish, it audits. It asks whether the private, personal side of your life is built on something real or something convenient. This cycle began asking hard questions about dating, the bedroom, family planning, and even how adult children or teenagers in your orbit are evolving, and it will keep asking until early 2028. Here is what changes everything about how you should hear that. Saturn in this position is not a countdown to loss. Astrologers often describe it as life farming you till hard ground now, and if you do not walk away when it gets heavy, what grows later tends to last. That reframes the entire 2-year window. This is not a punishment era. It is a foundation era. Now, layer today's faster-moving sky on top of that. The moon is transiting Aries as well, which many popular horoscope traditions read as a short emotional weather pattern rather than a life-altering event. Irritability, a shorter fuse, a tendency toward friction with people close to you. That is worth naming honestly. Tay's moon may amplify exactly the same territory Saturn has already been working on your closest relationships, just on a 24-hour timescale instead of a 2-year one. That is the first real synthesis worth sitting with. The Aries moon is not a separate event from the Saturn story. It is the same theme: intimacy, under pressure, showing up in miniature, for one day, so you can practice the exact patience the longer cycle is asking of you. Meanwhile, a second, gentler current runs through the afternoon. The nurturing moon later moves into Taurus and meets Chiron there, in the sector of your chart tied to daily work and physical routine. Chiron is often called the wounded healer. Wherever it sits, there is a tender spot that, once acknowledged, becomes a source of relief rather than irritation. That tender spot is something small, a habit, a task, a piece of your schedule that quietly chafes. Love. Bring the Saturn story back into focus here, because this is where it lives most intensely. You do not need the full explanation. Again, you already know the shape of it. Call it the relationship audit. Tay, with the moon still carrying that Aries edge, minor friction with a partner or someone you are dating may surface faster than usual, and it may feel disproportionate to whatever sparked it. You may have noticed this before. A small comment lands harder than it should, and suddenly you are defending a position you did not even feel strongly about an hour ago. That is not a sign the relationship is failing. It is closer to static on a phone line. The connection is fine. The signal is just noisy today. Here is the good news they did not mention. That same Moon-Chiron meeting in Taurus, which starts in the work sector, tends to bleed into how you show up romantically too, especially around energy management. If your love life has felt strained lately, it may have less to do with your feelings and more to do with your bandwidth. The habit of overcommitting and then quietly disappearing on the people who matter to you is a pattern worth noticing, not judging. Later, as the sun in Leo tempts you to push through and keep the day feeling exciting anyway, that is exactly the moment resentment tends to plant its first seed. You do not have to perform enthusiasm you do not have. Canceling one thing, splitting a task, or simply asking for a quieter evening protects the very affection you are trying to preserve. Romance does not have to exhaust you to count as real. Career. Take a breath here, because this next part rewards patience more than hustle. You have been expanding fast this year. That restless, big vision energy is practically your signature. But a quarter moon in efficient Taurus is asking a fair question. Have you gotten ahead of yourself? This is not a call to shrink your ambitions. It is a call to check whether the scaffolding under them can actually hold the weight. Picture it like a house being built floor by floor before the foundation has fully cured. It looks impressive from the street. But today's sky is asking you to walk back inside and check the bolts. Practical measures, a realistic timeline, a smaller first step, one concrete task instead of 5 abstract goals, do more for you right now than another burst of vision ever could. The reflex to reach for a bigger meeting or a bolder pitch might not be the efficient move today. Sometimes trading a meeting for a well-written email accomplishes the same goal with none of the friction, a small adjustment, but one that keeps both your schedule and your energy intact for the parts of the day that matter more. Money. That same grounded, checks and balances energy carries directly into your finances. If your ambitions have been running slightly ahead of your bank account or your actual bandwidth, today favors reeling things in just enough to make an idea sustainable rather than abandoning it. The journey of 1,000 miles beginning with a single step is not a cliche. Today it is closer to literal advice. One realistic financial move, mapped out clearly, outperforms 3 idealistic ones left vague. This is also a fair day to separate self-worth from net worth. The Saturn story running underneath 2026 is fundamentally about what you build to last, not what you accumulate quickly. Letting that patience extend into how you spend and save today, rather than just how you plan long-term, keeps the 2 timelines working together instead of against each other. Health. If you have been feeling a little more reactive than usual, or noticing your patience running thinner by mid-afternoon, that tracks with what is happening around you today, and this is where the day's real insight lies. Here is what makes today genuinely worth paying attention to. The same moon-trining contact quietly shaping your work routine and your relationships is also the thing most likely to be draining your physical energy without you clocking it. It is not your feelings running low. It is your energy running low, and the two get confused constantly, especially for a sign as instinctively optimistic as yours. Most people will chalk today up to mood. You now know it is closer to maintenance. That reframing matters because it changes what actually helps. Rather than pushing through with willpower, the Leo sun's favorite trick, the more effective move is addressing the small chafing habit directly. Maybe it is a posture issue, a task you keep avoiding, or a corner of your routine that has quietly become a source of tension. Naming it, adjusting it, even in a small way, tends to bring outsized relief today. Your optimistic streak can genuinely turn a chore into something closer to a mini adventure, provided you are tracking measurable progress rather than vague effort. Tidy systems, a cleared inbox, a simplified to-do list, one less thing pulling at your attention, free up real mental space for what actually inspires you. On timing, some traditions single out the early afternoon, roughly between 1 and 2:30, as a stretch where focus comes more easily and critical tasks move faster. There is no need to treat that as a rigid rule, but if you have something demanding, that window is worth testing. It is also worth being careful here about advice that gets tossed around too casually. Some Vedic practitioners may recommend Saturn-related remedies for individuals whose birth charts show specific afflictions, certain mantras, colors, or gemstones among them. That is never universal advice. Gemstone prescription in Vedic astrology depends entirely on personal chart analysis, including planetary dignity and timing, and is not something to adopt just because it is associated with your sign today. If a color feels relevant, some readers today lean toward avoiding deep, saturated blues, a small, low-stakes choice, nothing more. Home and family. The people closest to you deserve the softest version of you today, even though the sky is nudging you toward the sharpest one. This is where the Saturn story and today's faster moon genuinely overlap. Family, especially, sits inside that long-term audit Saturn has been running since this cycle began, whether that shows up as tension with an adult child, questions about the next generation, or simply the emotional weight of home life. Given that, Tay's short fuse is worth managing consciously rather than acting on. If you sense a sharp comment forming, there is real value in holding it back rather than letting it land. Restraint here is not suppression, it is protecting relationships that matter on a much longer timeline than today. On the flip side, reaching out tends to pay off disproportionately well right now. A message to family, a kind word to someone you do not know well, deliberately surrounding yourself with steady, positive people. These small gestures do more for your mood today than almost anything else available to you. If loneliness creeps in at any point, it is worth remembering it rarely reflects how surrounded by care you actually are. Travel and spirit. Zoom out for a second, because there is a bigger shape to today worth seeing clearly. The long Saturn cycle is teaching patience through your most personal relationships. Tay's quick-moving moon is teaching the same lesson in miniature through mood and minor friction. And the quieter Chiron contact is teaching it again through energy and routine. 3 different scales, 1 repeating theme. What you tend patiently now tends to hold later. If travel is on your mind, there is no astrological red flag here. Daydreaming about somewhere far away, even something as vivid as turquoise water in the Maldives, fits naturally with your sign's restless, expansive nature. Let it exist as inspiration rather than escape. The real growth today is not found on a map. It is found in the small, unglamorous act of pausing before you speak, adjusting before you push through, and choosing steadiness over spectacle. Lucky signs. If you are looking for the day's quick markers, here they are. The window between roughly 1 and 2:30 in the afternoon favors focus and getting critical work done. Numbers with a personal pull today include 20, 19, and 87. Deep or royal blue is worth setting aside for now, while your instinct toward optimism remains your strongest asset. Compatible energy today leans toward people who are steady rather than intense, the calming presence, not the dramatic one. Tay's guidance. So here is where all 3 timelines meet. The 2-year Saturn story is asking you to keep tending your closest relationships even when the ground feels heavy. That does not resolve today, and it is not supposed to. The 1-day moon story is asking for patience with your tongue and your temper, especially with people you love. And the quiet Chiron thread underneath both is asking you to fix the one small habit that has been draining you instead of pushing past it. None of these require a grand gesture. They ask for the same small thing. Repeat it. Notice the friction. Choose the gentler response. Adjust the routine instead of abandoning the goal. Do that today. And you are not just getting through a difficult Thursday. You are quietly practicing the exact skill this whole 2-year cycle is trying to teach you, and by 2028, you may be able to look back and see exactly where it started.